The Galactic Council gathered in a massive chamber at the heart of an ancient, floating citadel. Alien species of all shapes and sizes convened, their solemn faces reflecting the gravity of the situation at hand. At the center of the room stood the Archon, Xerathos, a towering figure with silver skin, whose voice carried the weight of countless centuries. She addressed the council, her words grave and measured. "We are on the verge of a catastrophic error," she began. "Xerathos, the alien king, is preparing to launch a full-scale invasion of Earth. And despite all our warnings, he remains resolute in his belief that humanity is weak. Xerathos, the tyrant who ruled the intergalactic empire with an iron fist, had always viewed humanity with disdain. To him, Earth was just another backwater planet filled with primitive creatures. He had conquered entire star systems without resistance, and he believed that humans, like the others, would bow under the weight of his empire's might. His arrogance was legendary, and it was this arrogance that had led to his dismissal of the Galactic Council's concerns." Xerathos looked around the room at the other delegates. Each of them represented a species that had thrived across the stars, each with their own history, power, and wisdom. They had seen wars, rebellions, and uprisings throughout the galaxy, but none had witnessed a species like humanity. Their resilience was unlike anything the Council had ever encountered. Yet, Xerathos had ignored all advice. His greed and hubris had clouded his judgment. A delegate from the Elvari, a race of telepathic beings, spoke next. "We've observed the humans for centuries. They are unpredictable, yes, but they also adapt quickly. They evolve under pressure, and their ingenuity is unmatched." Xerathos nodded. "Exactly. The humans will not roll over like the others. I fear that Xerathos underestimates them, and in doing so, he will make the gravest of mistakes." Another delegate, a reptilian warlord named Rakthar, leaned forward. "What if they are more trouble than we anticipate? They've proven they can fight back. They've fought off invaders before. Xerathos is a fool to ignore them." Xerathos paused. "If we intervene, we risk undermining the balance of power in the galaxy. Yet, we cannot let this play out without warning him." The council deliberated for hours. Messages were sent. Emissaries dispatched to Xerathos' flagship, warning him that his campaign was flawed, that the humans were not to be underestimated. They had seen the fire in humanity's spirit, and they knew that provoking them could have consequences the galaxy was unprepared for. But Xerathos was not swayed. He received the Council's warnings with contempt, dismissing them as the desperate pleas of lesser species afraid of his might. "They are insignificant," he scoffed to his generals. "Their weapons are primitive, and their technology is nothing compared to ours. We will crush them beneath the heel of my boot. There is no challenge here." His generals, a collection of battle-hardened alien commanders, exchanged uneasy glances. They had witnessed humanity's uncanny ability to survive and fight back, but Xerathos' words held the weight of absolute authority. They followed his orders without question, even though many of them harbored doubts. Meanwhile, in the hidden corners of the galaxy, humanity's influence was growing. Earth scientists and leaders had been preparing for this moment for decades. They had no idea that an alien invasion was imminent, but their innovations in space exploration, artificial intelligence, and military tactics were rapidly advancing. Humanity had been underestimated before. It was an inconvenient truth for the greater powers of the galaxy, but a truth nonetheless. A truth that was about to be proven once again. The Council sent one last message to Xerathos, a final plea to reconsider. "Push them too far, and you'll see why even the gods fear mortals." But Xerathos, drunk on his own power, ignored it. He had already made up his mind. He would destroy humanity, just as he had done with countless civilizations before. The galaxy would tremble before his might. And so, the invasion began. The invasion began with a roar as Xerathos' fleet descended on Earth. The sky darkened with the shadow of countless warships, their weapons primed and ready to annihilate anything that stood in their path. Cities fell in rapid succession, their defenses no match for the advanced alien technology. The invaders swiftly neutralized Earth's military forces, rendering them helpless in the face of overwhelming firepower. Resistance was futile, or so it seemed. Humanity's first response was one of panic. Governments collapsed, and the world was thrown into chaos. Entire nations were reduced to rubble, their cities burning under alien bombardment. Those who survived scrambled to find shelter, to regroup, but many were caught in the initial wave of destruction. Xerathos believed the victory was already complete. He reveled in the destruction, mocking humanity's attempts to fight back. These creatures, he scoffed, barely even deserve the title of life forms. How quickly they crumble. Yet, beneath the devastation, something was stirring. A spark of defiance. The survivors, though broken and scattered, were far from finished. In the ruined remnants of cities, underground bunkers, and scattered military outposts, the human spirit began to reassert itself. Groups of resistance fighters formed, banding together in the face of total annihilation. They were ragtag, ill-equipped, and vastly outgunned, but they shared one thing: an unyielding will to survive. In the cities, humans began to adapt quickly, using the wreckage of fallen alien ships and equipment to fuel their rebellion. Resistance cells operated in secrecy, carrying out small-scale sabotage operations, ambushing supply lines, and striking at key alien installations. Each victory, no matter how small, emboldened them. It became clear that humanity's strength was not in the size of their weapons, but in their ability to improvise and outthink their foes. One by one, the invaders' advances were slowed. Humans, using guerrilla tactics, exploited the alien fleet's overconfidence. The invaders had expected to face a people who would break under the pressure. Instead, they were met with tenacity. Human ingenuity turned the tide of battle. Drones once used by the aliens were hacked, turned against their masters, disrupting the invaders' communications and causing havoc in their ranks. What the aliens had dismissed as mere pests were proving to be a more dangerous force than they had anticipated. Xerathos, watching the reports from his flagship, was growing increasingly frustrated. How is this possible, he demanded. His forces had been well-trained and well-equipped, yet they were being outsmarted at every turn. He refused to believe that humanity could pose any true threat, but the evidence was undeniable. Small skirmishes were becoming larger, and pockets of resistance were spreading across the globe. He sent more forces to Earth, determined to crush the rebellion once and for all. However, with every additional force he sent, humanity adapted more swiftly. They knew their world better, they knew how to survive, and they understood that they couldn't win by matching the aliens blow for blow. Instead, they would outsmart them, turn their own technology against them, and use the terrain to their advantage. Despite the mounting pressure, humanity's resistance was only growing stronger. The alien forces were spread thin, trying to combat a foe that refused to die. It was clear now that humanity was not simply a victim to be eradicated. They were a force to be reckoned with, and Xerathos could no longer ignore the growing strength of the human resolve. His fleet, once so confident, was now bogged down in a war of attrition, struggling against a species that fought with more than just weapons. They fought with everything they had left. As the weeks wore on, Xerathos began to realize that this was not a simple invasion anymore. His once certain victory had turned into a prolonged conflict. And humanity, he had underestimated them, thinking them fragile and weak. But they were far more resilient than he could ever have imagined. The warning from the Galactic Council echoed in his mind. Push them too far, and you'll see why even the gods fear mortals. But it was too late now. Xerathos had already committed, and he refused to back down. He could only hope that his forces would overwhelm the humans before their defiance turned into something more dangerous. On Earth, as the alien empire began to show signs of faltering, the resistance leaders gathered, knowing that this was just the beginning. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to reclaim their planet, to show the galaxy that humanity would never bow to any conqueror, no matter how powerful. Humanity had never been more united. The resistance, once disorganized and struggling, was now a formidable force. In every corner of Earth, the human spirit surged with newfound strength. No longer were they simply fighting for survival, they were fighting for their place in the universe, and they would not be silenced. The alien invaders, who had once dismissed humanity as insignificant, were now facing an adversary unlike any they had encountered before. The humans had learned quickly. Every failure had been a lesson, every setback a moment for growth. Where the alien forces relied on sheer strength, humanity relied on their ingenuity and adaptability. They had reverse-engineered alien technology, exploiting every weakness they could find. What once seemed like overwhelming firepower was now being turned against its creators. Alien drones, designed for precision and surveillance, were hacked and reprogrammed, becoming tools of rebellion. The human-made EMP devices disabled energy shields that once seemed invincible. But it wasn't just technology that was shifting the balance, it was the nature of humanity itself. While the alien forces may have been superior in firepower, they lacked the drive and the resilience that humans possessed. The human resistance operated with a single-minded purpose, a deep understanding that they had nothing to lose. Their world, their homes, their families, all were at stake. The alien invaders, on the other hand, had no personal stake in the outcome. For them, this was a conquest, a mission to crush a lesser species.
But humans didn't see it that way.
They fought with everything they had. Xerathos, who had once dismissed humanity as weak and insignificant, was now facing a growing problem. His fleet, once so confident, had been severely disrupted by the human resistance. Key supply lines were cut, critical military installations were sabotaged, and alien ships began to fall from the sky. The more his forces fought back, the more they encountered unexpected resistance. What should have been a clean, swift victory was becoming an all-out war of attrition. And the longer this went on, the more his empire bled. The turning point came when the humans launched a daring counteroffensive. The resistance, using their newfound alien technology and guerrilla tactics, took to the skies, piloting stolen alien craft in strategic strikes against Xerathos' fleet. It was a move that no one had predicted. Human fighters, once considered inferior, were now able to outmaneuver their alien counterparts. They used their own ships against them, setting traps, laying mines, and unleashing devastating attacks that crippled key enemy vessels. Xerathos' fleet was beginning to crumble under the pressure. As the war raged on, the human resistance gained momentum. The battlefronts shifted. What had once been a series of small skirmishes became a full-scale war. Major cities that had fallen under alien control were slowly retaken, and each victory gave humanity the strength to push further. Even in the darkest hours, when hope seemed distant, the resistance fought harder. They fought because they understood something that Xerathos never could. Their survival was not just about military might, it was about the will to continue. Xerathos watched helplessly as his empire's grip on Earth loosened. For the first time, he began to feel the pressure. His generals, once confident in the ease of the invasion, were now questioning their strategy. His own fleet, once a symbol of dominance, was slowly being dismantled by a force that refused to die. Desperation began to take hold of the alien king. He ordered more reinforcements to Earth, hoping to crush the resistance once and for all, but it was clear that the situation was slipping from his control. The more Xerathos tried to subjugate humanity, the more humanity fought back. And now, for the first time, he realized that he had not just provoked a rebellion. He had unleashed something much worse, a force that he could neither predict nor control. Humanity had found its strength, its purpose, and now there was no turning back. The warning of the Galactic Council echoed in his mind. Push them too far, and you'll see why even the gods fear mortals. It was too late for Xerathos to turn back now. The humans had awakened a force greater than his empire could handle, and they were coming for him. In the heart of the resistance, leaders communicated in secret. They knew this was their moment, the final push. They would not stop until Xerathos and his empire were vanquished, and Earth was free once again. It was no longer about survival, it was about victory. And as the war raged on, it became clear that humanity would not only survive this invasion, they would drive the aliens from their planet entirely. Xerathos, once so confident in his empire's power, now found himself in a desperate struggle to maintain control. Earth, a planet he had deemed insignificant, had become his undoing. The human resistance, once scattered and vulnerable, had grown into an unstoppable force. The alien war machine that had once swept through the planet with ease was now being torn apart piece by piece, and Xerathos could no longer ignore the inevitable. He had underestimated humanity, and now the galaxy would witness the consequences. The final battle loomed. Xerathos, desperate to crush the resistance once and for all, threw everything he had left into a single, all-out assault on Earth. His fleet, battered but still vast, descended upon the planet in a desperate attempt to wipe out the last vestiges of resistance. The human forces, though outnumbered and outgunned, were prepared. They had learned, adapted, and fought tooth and nail to reach this moment. For the first time, humanity had the upper hand. The resistance had infiltrated the heart of the alien command structure, using their stolen technology to launch a devastating counterattack. The ships that once belonged to the alien invaders now flew in human hands, their deadly weapons turned back against their creators. Every maneuver, every strike, was calculated, precise. The alien fleet, once a symbol of supreme dominance, was now under siege. Their ships were being crippled by human ingenuity and tactics. On the ground, the situation was no different. The cities that had been occupied for so long had finally been liberated, and humanity's forces surged forward. Guerrilla fighters and military units, once small and fragmented, now operated in unison, coordinating attacks that overwhelmed the alien invaders. The enemy, once so confident, was now in retreat. Xerathos, watching from his flagship, could only watch in disbelief as his empire crumbled before his eyes. In a final, desperate move, Xerathos launched a direct assault on the human capital, hoping to break the resistance's spirit and crush their resolve. But it was too late. The humans were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their freedom, for the future of their species. And they were not going to lose. The battle raged, but it was clear that the tide had turned. The humans had learned from every defeat, adapted from every loss, and now they were unstoppable. Xerathos, now fully aware of his failure, watched in stunned silence as his flagship was breached. Human fighters, working in unison, tore through his defenses, planting explosives and disabling the ship's core systems. It was the final blow. His empire, his fleet, his dreams of galactic domination, all crumbled in an instant. As the flagship fell into the atmosphere, the last remnants of Xerathos' forces scattered, their will broken. The Galactic Council, watching from afar, could hardly believe what had just transpired. They had warned Xerathos of humanity's potential, but they too had underestimated the true power of the human spirit. The humans had not just defeated an invader, they had sent a message to the galaxy. They were no longer to be considered weak, insignificant, or unworthy of respect. Humanity had risen up, united, and taken control of its destiny. As the dust settled and Earth began to rebuild, the human leaders sent a message to the galaxy. They had faced destruction, had been pushed to the brink, but they were still standing. "We are not your slaves," the message read. "We are not your victims. And if you ever think you can conquer us again, remember this. We are humans. We fight. And we never give up." The Galactic Council, stunned by humanity's resolve, was forced to reconsider its views. Where once humanity was seen as weak and insignificant, they were now seen as a rising power, a force to be reckoned with. Xerathos' downfall would be a turning point in the galaxy's history. It would serve as a warning to all who would underestimate the power of humanity. They had seen what humanity was capable of when pushed too far, and they would never forget. Earth had won. Humanity had triumphed. And as they began to rebuild, the stars no longer seemed so far away. The galaxy had witnessed the birth of a new power, one that would shape the future in ways no one could predict. And humanity, would ensure that its place among the stars would never again be questioned.